Hi everyone, welcome back to Random Topic NG. I remain Ngozi Obiefuna. If you've ever felt like you have way too much on your plate, today's episode is definitely for you. We're talking about delegation. Delegation is the one skill that can take you from feeling overworked to feeling empowered. Now, I know that delegation isn't always easy. I used to struggle with it myself. I would think to myself, if I don't do it, who will? And even if they do, will it be done right? But let me tell you, learning to delegate was a game changer. I know that a couple of us always have to struggle. Should I delegate this? Okay, what exactly do I need to delegate? What exactly do I need to do myself? This episode is all you need to listen to right now, as we're going to break down why delegation is so powerful, how to do it the right way, and how to overcome those struggles that stop us from letting go. So let's get into it. Now, here's a question for you. Have you ever felt completely drained at the end of the day, even though you were busy all day? Like you're always putting out fires, but you're never really moving forward. That's what happens when you try to do everything yourself. I used to be guilty of this, and the reality is that you don't have to do it all. The best leaders, the ones who get things done without burning out, know how to delegate effectively. Think about great leaders like Oprah Winfrey or Elon Musk. Do you think that they handle every little task in their business? Of course not. They focus on their zone of genius and they delegate the rest. And that's how they maximize their impact. But here's a mistake many of us make at this stage. We believe delegating means losing control. No, it doesn't. We also think no one can do it as well as we can. Well, maybe not at first, but eventually they'll get there. And then we feel guilty for asking for help. But delegation is not a burden, it's actually an empowerment. So if you want to get more done without feeling overwhelmed, you need to learn to master delegation. And while thinking about this, I was able to come up with a simple 3 step formula to help you do just that. Step 1, identify what to delegate. The first step is figuring out what to delegate. And from my research, a good rule of thumb is the 70% rule. If someone can do a task at least 70% as well as you can, delegate it. Here's how to decide what to delegate. Think about the low value tasks, things that don't require your expertise. So, you're working on a project and you have things that your first year associates can do. Why exactly do you want to do that as a fourth year associate? Fine, I know that the person may not get it right, but then it's a low value tax. You do not want to charge your time saying that you spent 8 hours doing something that you can actually delegate to a first year associate. After thinking about low value tasks and delegating them, think about how you can delegate repeating tasks. I mean, these are things that take up the time but can be systemized. Thankfully, we live in an era where technology is spoken about and technology is used as a great tool in advancing work efficiency. Think about that thing that is more like a repetitive task that you know that with the use of technology, you can get it done in little or no time. Maybe as a business person, you're still there entering, ledgers, manual ledgers. You have the big book where you have to record your daily entries, rule the line. Think about how to automate this repetitive task such that you don't have to start stressing yourself. With the use of technology, using Microsoft Excel or other tools that could be very useful, you already just have the report drawn down or the report already prepared, and all you have to do is to enter the variables, and it saves you more time to do other things. Now, tasks that you don't enjoy or you aren't good at. I mean, why struggle when someone else can do it better? So if there are tasks that you don't enjoy, please feel free to delegate them. So for example, if you're running a business, should you be spending hours responding to emails or designing social media posts? Probably not. These are things you can delegate while you focus on strategy and growth. It doesn't make sense that as the owner of the business, when you should be making the very, very, very key decisions in your business, you're busy wondering about who is going to get lunch for the team. You're busy wondering about who is going to remit taxes. I mean, these are things that you have other people for, and then you can actually delegate to them so that you can focus your energy on what really matters. Once you have identified what to delegate, the next thing to do is to choose who to delegate it to. The problem that most of us have is we just look at someone and then you just feel like, okay, let me give it to this person since the person is less busy. Forgetting that the person would spend so much time if the person cannot do it at least 70%. I know that some people would argue and say, oh, but they have to learn. I totally agree. But it doesn't make sense that instead of you to delegate as a fifth year associate, instead of you to delegate it to a third year associate, you're delegating it to a first year associate who has to learn the basics, who has to ask all the questions, and then there may be no time for all that. You need to delegate the right task to the right person. So, here is how to pick the right person. First, you need to match the task to their strength. You need to give it to someone who has the skills or who can learn quickly. Since a third year associate can do it, do not, for want of time, start assigning it to a first year associate who has to take some time to understand what happened in the previous year, if there is anything to rely on, and then who has to take some time asking all the questions. But delegating it to a third year associate, it simply means that, okay, there are some errors which are avoidable, which the person already knows not to make. And this is one thing that you should consider in picking the right person. The next one is trust your team. People rise to the responsibility you give them, whether you like it or not. And yes, I know that there are exceptions. There are some people who may not rise to the responsibility. Once people give you this responsibility, they trust that you are able to actually deliver on the task. I remember a couple of years ago, I worked on a project where I already had my allocated tasks. I was dealing with it. And then the team lead asked me to do something that the person above me was meant to do so that we could save time, and I told her that let's see how it goes because it's also my first time working on it. But she said, oh, you already have the basic knowledge. All you just have to do is to update this, do this, get this information, and see how you're able to fly with the task. And I was able to do that. That's because she already knew I had the basic skills. And she also trusted that I could be able to deliver on that particular task. Sometimes when people delegate tasks to you, it's not because they want to, for lack of better words, kill you with work. It's because they believe that, okay, this is something that you can do. I believe that you can do it. I believe that by the time you do it, you'd be able to learn and get better at it because it's something that you'll be doing in the nearest future. And then I also trust that you'll be able to deliver. I know that this is something that managers, team leads, they do. Before they allocate tasks on specific projects, they try to look and, try to check and balance like, okay, is this person up to the task? If I ask this person to prepare this work area for me, can I go to bed knowing fully well that since we agreed 3 days, in less than 3 days, I may be lucky enough to have that task? Or do I have to start wondering that, oh, is Ngozi actually working on this thing? Can Ngozi actually do it? And then every hour I'm reaching out to her, or even every 30 minutes and I'm saying, how far have you done this? How far have you done that? No. You should be able to trust your team and also believe that the person or the people would rise to the responsibility that you give them. Finally, let's go perfectionism. Hey, as I thought of this, I thought to myself that there are some people who just want everything to be perfect. Sometimes you should consider progress over perfection. You want someone to do something the same way you would have done it, but you seem to forget that you and the person are two different individuals. You're two unique individuals. Let go of perfectionism. I'm not saying that you should tolerate any form of erroneous work or poorly done work. All I'm just trying to say is let go. of perfectionism. And in doing that, I'm saying it won't be done exactly like you would do it. And that's okay. Sometimes you need to understand that people need to be able to learn from their mistakes. I'm not saying costly mistakes now, but people need to be able to learn from their mistakes. And the fact that they do not get it 100% does not mean that they are not good at it. Because some of us are looking for perfection, we forget to actually commend the progress that has been attained. And so, when you're thinking about it, please, when you're thinking about choosing the right person, remember to also let go of perfectionism. I remember once delegating an important report at work. I was so tempted to redo parts of it because it wasn't in my style. But guess what? The report was still great, and I was able to have time to focus on bigger things. I remember having a chat with a friend of mine, and we started talking about delegation. You delegate things to people, and then it comes back to you, and you're asking yourself, why didn't I just do it? And then the final step in this three-step formula is set clear expectations and follow up. Delegation isn't just about handing off work, it's about setting your team up for success. I think that some of us, and I stand to be corrected, I think that some of us actually set people up for failure because you're not setting the expectations. Fine, the person does not ask for expectation. It is your responsibility as the one delegating to ensure that you're telling them, I need the sales report to be done this way. I need you to be able to show me this, show me that, and then I need it within this time frame. But then you just throw the person, and then you expect the person to go and find, some people will say you go to town. The person goes to town because the person goes and asks all the irrelevant questions. And then by the time the person brings the report back to you, you're shouting, you're screaming, you're acting all angry, and then you're using all forms of derogatory words at them. But you did not set them up for success. I mean, you were not clear on what you wanted. You should give clear instructions and expected outcomes. That way, you ensure that your team member is actually going to do what you've delegated him or her to do. And then you should not micromanage. Many people are good at micromanaging. Do you know that micromanaging makes people give in their worst and not their best? Nobody likes being watched like a hawk. Give people space to do their best work. Now, you've had a conversation with someone, and then you've told the person that you need the report in 5 hours. You do realize that it won't hurt to actually check in on the person halfway into the task, because you want to be sure that they are doing what you ask them to do and that they are not experiencing any difficulties, knowing fully well that some people do not know how to speak up to their senior team members. They just want to be sure that they've tried every other possible outcome before reaching out to their senior team members. But because you're the delegator, you know that you need this in 5 hours. You need to check in with the person at halftime to be sure that, okay, this is how it's going. Don't micromanage. Some people are terrible, 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 very terrible. Because I've had a situation whereby I sat with a junior colleague, and then every 30 minutes, there was this Teams message that was popping up. This is for a report that was needed the following week. That was a Tuesday, and the report was needed the following Monday. And then the person kept saying, how far are you done now? Every 30 minutes. I thought to myself, are you sure the senior team member did not set an alarm? Because how else is it that you don't have something else to do yourself that you're following up with the person every 30 minutes for a report that is due for first draft review the following Monday? How about we can do better. And when you are not micromanaging, you're actually doing what? Following up, but with trust. Follow up, but with trust. You need to check in periodically, not every minute. You do know that what you're doing is actually destabilizing the person. Checking in every 30 minutes. It's distracting, it's destabilizing, and then it makes the person feel like, oh, you don't even trust that I'm able to do this. And I'm not saying that you should just leave them and go to sleep, no. But periodic check-ins will be better valued. And one thing I have learned from those who I worked with, thank you to everyone who paved the way for me and made the environment really welcoming. One trick I love, which I learned from them, was instead of saying, let me know if you need anything, they would say something like, let's check in on Friday to see how it's going. That way, you stay in the loop without hovering. So if you are meant to get the report, 2 days after, you can just say, oh, let's check in tomorrow to see how it's going. That's how to go about it. Instead of checking in every 10 minutes, every 30 minutes to be sure that, oh, they are doing it or to know how it's going. But now, I know that some of you might be thinking to yourself, like, what if they mess up? What if I feel guilty? What if my team resists? So here's my take on overcoming common delegation struggles. Mistakes are learning opportunities. The perfectionist would not agree with me, but mistakes are learning opportunities. If someone makes a mistake, use it as a coaching moment. That's how they get better. The problem is that when people make mistakes, what some team members do, what some managers do, what some team leads do, is they begin to just use all sorts of words at them. No. Let it be a coaching moment. You're telling the person this is what you did not do right. Now, I know that some team members can be really annoying. I know they can be difficult to work with. But then again, step into their shoes to think about it. Are you sure they even get it? Are you sure they are not struggling? Fine, they've made the mistake. What do you do? Coach them. Don't go about casting slurs at them. Just make sure you coach them. And then after that, remember that delegation is not a burden, it's empowerment. Because by handing over tasks, you're trusting others to step up, and that's leadership. Fine, you worked on that project this year. Next year, you may have to work on another project, and the person who worked with you as your junior team member may need to step up to the occasion of filling in your shoes on that particular project. So remember that you're empowering them by delegating what they are to do this year, so that next year when they come, they are able to also coach and return the favor which you passed on. Now, if they resist, show them the benefits. People love ownership, so make them feel like an important part of the process. I remember a couple of years ago, I think about 2 years ago, an undergraduate intern that was working with me on a project came to meet me and said, Ngozi, I don't understand this work that I'm doing. How does it even tie to the overall strategy of the project? Then I sat him down and then I explained to him that this work you are doing, you think that what you're doing is just you checking to be sure that the supporting documents provided are accurate, and so it really does not matter. It matters because in the process of you doing that check, you may discover something that may lead to a big misstatement, something that can affect the overall strategy of the project. And then he understood that, okay, every single thing that we do ties into the overall project strategy. So when you are delegating, you need to make sure that you're able to take them through the fact that what they are doing matters. At the end of the day, delegation is a skill. The more you practice, the easier it gets. So remember to delegate effectively today. I know you're tempted to want to do it all by yourself. You don't want any mistakes. You're pressed for time. Delegate early enough. Give them grace, the same way people gave you grace in the past. Now, here is the key takeaway as I wrap up. Delegation isn't about losing control. It's about gaining freedom. The more you delegate smartly, the more time you free up for the things that really matter. So here is my challenge for you, and also for me, because sometimes I struggle with delegation. Think of one task you can delegate this week and do it. So let me know how it goes. You can reach out to me privately or you can comment on social media or send me a message, and I would love to hear your experiences. Thank you for tuning in to Random Talk with NG.